Okay, and I think we're live. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those new here, my name's Nikki, and in this series, Nikki's Language Learning, I'm doing a series of videos about the different foreign languages I've been learning, how and why I got into them, how I work on them and practice them, and just a few other sort of general videos about language learning just from my experiences of the last few years. Today is the 9th video, I believe, in the series. And today we're working through the 8 foreign languages that I've done at various times, and we're up to Czech, which is, let me see, the 4th language I started. Czech is a little bit different than the first 3 languages I spoke about because it's one I learned purely on my own. So let's just swap the banner over. Okay, so how I got started with Czech. I've always had Penpals since I was reasonably young, and I had a Penpal in Prague for many years. Unfortunately, we've lost touch over time. But back in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s, I was writing to her, and she invited me in, I believe it was 2001, to go and visit her in Prague and stay with her for a week. This was actually my first time ever traveling on my own. And so it was a bit of an adventure for me as well. But I flew over to Prague, and she met me at the airport, and I stayed with her at her home just outside the city in the suburbs for I think it was 6 or 7 nights. And it was while I was there that I fell in love with the Czech language and decided I wanted to learn it. I just really loved the sound of it. She and I were both theatre fans, so we went together and saw a number of Czech musicals, and it just made me really interested in learning the language. As I mentioned at the start, this was a different experience for me because my previous languages, French, German, Italian, are all ones that I had started at school. So I'd had formulated study, I guess you could say guided study through them. For Czech, I didn't have that. And I started by going out and buying myself the Teach Yourself Czech book from the Teach Yourself series. This was okay. The Teach Yourself series, I think on the whole, are a decent place to start if you're looking for a kind of guided book. However, they have their ups and downs. I mean, the Czech one always amused me because there was a section in it in which we followed this man at the airport, and sure enough, that probably is useful vocabulary, useful stuff to learn. However, the guy was a geologist, and he was attending a geology conference, and he had to explain why there were so many stones in his luggage, or bits of rock and things, which, while amusing, did make me wonder why, at a beginner level, I needed to know vocab for things like geology conference and different types of rocks and things like that. It didn't seem to me particularly practical. Maybe just saying he was going on holiday and something like that would be a bit more useful for a beginner. But on the whole, the books are okay. They're probably best if you kind of like to learn through scenarios, because there's usually a scenario, some vocab, and then they'll teach bits of grammar in between that. The only thing about the books is if you're looking back later and you just want to remember how to conjugate verbs in the past tense or something, it's not always easy to find that grammar section in the books. But that's the only sort of negative I'd say, but they're not a bad place to start if you just want an overview to learn some phrases and gradually work into a little bit of grammar just to start you off. So following that, I was mainly practicing by writing to my pen pal. I'd fallen in love with Czech musicals, as I said, so I'd brought a few DVDs and CDs back with me, so I was singing along to the songs, getting used to the sound of the language, writing and reading letters with my pen pal, just gradually getting to that sort of beginner to intermediate level in reading and writing. My pen pal also sent me at one point, actually, no, I lie, that was a second pen pal. I had 2 pen pals at one point in the Czech Republic. It was the second pen pal who sent me this book, which I'll show you here. There it is. It's called Dashenka Chili Život Štěněte. Sorry. And it's quite a cute little story. As you can see, there's this little dog. We followed the little dog in the story. and there's some cute little pictures through it as well. So it's kind of a sort of beginner to intermediate level book. And I mean, I can see in here back when I first read it, I don't know how well it will show up in the video, but you can see some of my notes where I've looked things up. And I went back to Prague. That wasn't my only trip to Prague. I went back several other times with family and friends for sort of long weekends to a week, and saw more Czech musicals, picked up some more Czech books. I've got a bit of a range of Czech books. Some are sort of adult, sort of high level advanced ones that I haven't particularly read through yet, or I've only skimmed through. One of the ones I picked up at one point was the Czech version of the first book in the Vampire Diaries series, so more of a YA age range piece, which it's kind of, that's kind of roughly at my level, just beyond it. So and in fact, I haven't picked it up for a while, so that probably will be the next one I pick up and try to work on a bit for practice. But that's sort of how I started out and how I was learning Czech for the first few years. I then had a bit of a break because both my Czech pen pals, the first one, the one who I'd gone to stay with, after a few years, I just never got a reply from her. We had a mutual pen pal and she'd stopped hearing from her too. So I don't know what exactly happened. Hopefully she's okay somewhere. But she just stopped writing to everyone, it seemed, at that time. And the other one gradually got married, had a family, and didn't have time to write anymore. So I lost touch with both of them and didn't have anyone with whom to write or practice Czech anymore. It was around the same time that I moved here to Australia, so I could no longer go on the weekend trips to Prague to practice. My Czech has become very rusty. So it's something I've been working on since probably the last 6 months or so, that I'm trying to get into practicing it a bit again and using it, and try and build it up again and get back to where I was and then advance further. So that probably brings us on quite nicely to continuing studies. So at this point, I will show you a couple of books that, as well as the Teach Yourself one, are ones I've been using. So I do have this one I bought while I was still in England before I moved to Australia. And it is Czech and Essential Grammar. So it's a Routledge release book. This is a pretty good grammar book. I mean, look, it's a dry grammar book. There's nothing in here apart from grammar, but the explanations are well presented. It's easy to find what you need. So I was using this one a lot when I was writing my letters in Czech, because if I just wanted to check a conjugation or something, this was a good place to look. Or if I wanted to check like whether it should be accusative or dative after a particular preposition, that kind of thing, this was a good reference for that. The other one I used to use a lot for similar purpose is this little one. So it's quite cute. This is a book. It's all in Czech. There's no English in here. Though I bought it in England. I bought it in Foyles in London. But it's purely in Czech. However, it's a really quick grammar guide. I don't know how well the camera will pick this up, but you can see it's just got tables of declensions and conjugations and things. So again, this is a really super quick reference guide if you just want to look up the past tense for a verb or something like that. So those have both been really good. And I also had, I've had this dictionary for a long time as well. So at the time I was starting to learn Czech, I was looking around for resources, and Czech is not one of the most resource-friendly languages, I guess you would say, in terms of finding English language material and such for learning. But this is the later English Czech English dictionary, and this was the best one that I found while I was looking at that time back in the early 2000s. There may be other ones out there now, but at the time this was the best option, and it's been reasonably reliable. You sometimes don't find everything you want in here, but for the most part, everyday language is in here. So as I've been picking up Czech again now, I guess it's been a matter of looking for resources again. So one thing I've been doing is following a few YouTubers. I follow one called SlowCzech, and they have a website too. And I really like their content. They do different videos and also just audio podcasts that you can find on the website that are ranging level from beginner through to advanced, and just sort of conversational videos, or they'll go for trips out to somewhere and show you the scenery while talking about the history of the place and what they're doing and what they're seeing. And those are, I find, really good for listening practice. And they do the occasional sort of vocabulary, grammar type video as well along the way. Another one I've been keeping an eye on is Learn Czech with me, which these generally are presented all in Czech, which is mostly the same with SlowCzech, although sometimes SlowCzech will provide the English subtitles. But Learn Czech with me is mainly in Czech, but it does just little short grammar videos, verb conjugation videos, and vocabulary type videos. And finally, another one is Because Czech is Cool. This is probably the most approachable one for English speakers, because the creator often either speaks a bit in English and Czech, or if she doesn't speak in English, she usually includes some English subtitles that you can put on as you watch. She does some really good grammar explanation type videos. Also a lot of stuff on Czech pronunciation as well. So then in terms of the websites, I already mentioned SlowCzech, because as well as their YouTube channel, they have some podcasts and other materials available on their site. They offer courses, paid courses as well, but there's still a fair amount you can get from their free material that's interesting and useful. I have been on Duolingo a bit for Czech as well. I just find it, although Duolingo has its ups and downs, I think it is useful for me, where I have studied the grammar before, just to get that little prompt to practice some of it and refresh some of it. So I am working through the Czech course in Duolingo, but not using it as a primary learning tool, more as just a revision type tool. And you pick up a bit of vocab along the way, and you can just check your grammar. One other website I've come across, which I haven't really used a lot myself, but it's probably a decent resource for anyone who's looking to start Czech completely as a beginner. And it's called Reality Czech. And it's produced by a university, aimed at English speakers learning Czech. And it's a sort of unit module-based online course that you can access for free. So that's worth checking out if you're a complete beginner. Perhaps you don't want to commit to buying textbooks yet, but you want to see how you get on with the language, then that's probably an okay place to have a look at. So in terms of my other continuing studies, as I said, I'm following these YouTubers, and I watch any new content they put out, working my way roughly through the Duolingo course. My aim this year is to get back into reading Czech more. And at the time when I was first learning Czech, I was watching and listening and singing along to a lot of Czech musicals. And I'm not doing that so much these days, partly for time reasons. Excuse me while I have a quick drink. But also because I've been listening to a lot of Korean and Japanese content lately, rather than Czech. But without any other way to easily practice Czech speaking, I do want to get into watching and singing along to some Czech musicals a bit again this year. And I will consider looking into italki or something as well, to try and find someone with whom I can practice speaking now and then. So those are my goals with Czech. As I said, I've pretty much learnt it because of going to Prague, falling in love with the place. It's one of my favourite cities in the world. It's such a great, fun city to be in. I love the history, the old town centre. And Czech is a really beautiful sounding language. If it's something you're considering learning, I'd say the difficulty with Czech mainly is all the conjugations. For example, with things like adjectives, I mean, if we look in this little book here, I'll bring up the page. So here we go. So this entire top section here is just the declensions for a single adjective, the word for young. Because not only do you have masculine, feminine, and neuter as your cases, as your sort of genders, you also have here 7 different cases. that the word can take. So accusative, genitive, dative, etc. Which means that, and then we've got the singular at the top, plural underneath. So we've got what, 7 times 3, 21, times 3 again, 42 potential endings for a single adjective. So that is the difficulty that I've always found with Czech. It's just remembering all of those and when to use them. The rest of the grammar, I think, is not particularly more complicated than other languages in terms of knowing how to form past tense, present tense. It is just those case endings mainly that are the issue, I would say. Czech likes endings a lot. In fact, the only language I've been learning that likes endings more is Icelandic. The two of them are probably pretty much on a par in terms of the difficulty of remembering how to end words. But in other ways, Czech is a reasonable, easy language. In terms of speaking, once you learn the rules for how letters are pronounced, it's a fairly phonetic language, and it uses a Roman alphabet with just a few additional characters than what we're used to in English. So mainly to get the sort of zh, ch, sh type sounds. But other than that, it's fairly easy to be able to read it and learn that part very quickly because it is an alphabet we're familiar with. For Czech, other than the sort of history of the place, as I said, I love the musicals. Czech musicals are great fun. They do productions of the Western musicals, but they also have a very strong tradition of original Czech musicals. Most of them there are a few that are more sort of traditional, I hesitate to say classical, but let's say traditional style musicals. But a lot of them are more pop and rock based. And part of the reason for this is that a lot of their pop and rock singers, soloists and band leaders, perform in these musicals, which is similar to what goes on in a lot of European, not a lot of European countries, but let's say France does the same thing with a lot of its rock operas, and Korea certainly has a lot of K-pop stars that also do musicals. So it follows in that kind of tradition, as opposed to places like Germany and England where you are a musical theatre performer. And because of that, the shows tend to lend themselves to more of a pop and rock style music. And there are some really wonderful shows. And if you're interested, take a look on YouTube, because you will find footage of some of these on YouTube, sometimes with English subtitles available as well. Some of my favorites are Dracula, a Czech musical of Dracula, Johanka Zaku, Joan of Arc, Cleopatra, spelled just with a K, and Tajemství is excellent, Golem. There's also been musicals of Hamlet, Galileo, Three Musketeers. So do have a look anyway around YouTube. If you type Czech musical, a few of them will come up and you can have a listen. So those are my sort of reasons for learning Czech, how I've been going about it in the past, and the way I want to continue going about it now. I've recently found a new Czech friend on the Slowly app, who I'm writing to a bit to try and get back into writing and reading Czech a little more again. And I'm hoping I might pick up another pen pal or two along the way as well. I will end there for today. I'll be back next month when we will be talking about Danish this time. Danish was the next language I picked up after Czech. So I hope you will join me again then. But I will end there for today. Bye, everyone.